Hey guys, Hastings here and welcome to another unlikely track car build. This time out we are taking out the General Lee. Yee-haw! Yeah, apologies for that. But anyway, we will be driving a 69 Dodge Charger and it's got to have its nice compulsory build up to A-Class. Unfortunately it starts pretty damn low down, which means it's the first car that we've got to use that's going to have an engine swap. Audi had a what was it? I can't think what a driveline swap? What's it called? I can't think what it's called now. Yeah, drivetrain swap. From four-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive. But because of this car, it doesn't have enough power in the main engine, or the stock engine, to get it up there. So what we're going to use is this 5.9 litre V8 racing engine, which has 825 horsepower, which makes this already the most powerful car we've got, or we've used in this series. Yeah. This could be interesting. I have already built this car before just to check that it would make it to the top of A-Class. Like I said, I found out that it couldn't with the stock engine. That's why we're going to have the engine swap. So, time to go through the rest of the compulsory stuff. So, we're going to stick on front and rear aero as such, or as so, like that, whatever. And we're also going to stick on full race tyres, which shoots up the PI from C-Class already up to A-Class. Convenient. That's quite a jump, really. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to stick in the racing gearbox, which doesn't seem to do a lot, maybe a bit top speed. But we always have to have that one. And finally, we're going to have the racing roll cage, which ridiculously improves the chassis on this car. And while we're here, we're going to go through and we're going to stick in the weight reduction because it weighs 3,700 pounds with a lighter engine. So it's a relatively heavy car. I mean, it's not Rolls-Royce Wraith heavy, but it's fairly heavy. Down to 3,000 pounds now. That is pretty damn light, really, for a big muscle car. So we're going to finish off, like I say, with the rest of the handling upgrades. You can see that I already own all the parts, so it's taking not quite as long as it might do. As, like I say, I did have to go and test and check to make sure that it would work. Finally, we're going to stick on the brakes and then we can go back through. And this is where I have to remember what else I did with the car. What we're going to do is we're going to max out the tyre widths on this car. I have 345s on the rear, which is ridiculously large. And with a rear-wheel drive car with 825 horsepower, very glad of those rear tyre widths. Lastly, we're going to stick on the maximum front tyre widths. Oh, excuse me, a little burp there. But yeah, front tyre widths, nice and conveniently, take this car up to A700 as the PI class thing. I think, if I remember rightly, we will be able to take out a little bit of weight, take out another 2.7 pounds, because that is going to make all the difference in the world. And that's it for the build. As per usual, there is no tuning in this series. So I'm going to go and head to Road Atlanta, give it 5 flying laps, and I'll catch up with you on track. See you in a sec. As we come on to the first lap, I feel very happy with this car. Mainly because normally when I finish a build, I come and do the commentary and I think, oh, what can I really say about it? But with this car, I feel like I've got quite a lot to say. I just hope that I can remember to say it all. As per usual, there will be a certain... there'll be a few things that I always bring up, so I'll talk about those as well, like how the car deals with certain parts of the track or whatever. But the first thing I want to say is this car drives like the General Lee. I don't know what it is, but sticking the engine in it, is it a NASCAR engine? I mean, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it's the NASCAR engine that we put in there. It's 825 horsepower, sure, it's got to be. It's said racing as well, so, but yeah. Putting that in this car and making it somehow this car copes with the power. I mean, look at that exit onto the straight there. Virtually no tyre smoke. The way that this car copes with its power, and it's so fast and it's just throw aboutable and it's a bit springy, but not too soft. It was stiff enough to like be quite nimble and go around the track, but it was soft enough to feel like you're floating around a little bit in places. But it just, I guess it was the way that it dealt with the curbs, throw a bit of dust every so often. I don't know what it was, but it just made me feel like I was driving the General Lee in this car. Again, you can probably think I'm a complete idiot and I'm absolute loony, but that's just how I felt in this car. It made me feel so happy driving this car. It was like, I genuinely believed I wasn't just driving a 69 Charger, I was behind the wheel of the General Lee. It was just missing the horn. But it was just, I feel like I'm repeating myself here, and I probably am. I just love driving this car. It was so fantastic. And yeah, that's my emotional thing and ecstaticness kind of. Let's put that to one side now and start talking about all the normal stuff. And I'd like to kick off with the power. Let's just touch upon it a minute ago. I cannot believe how well this car copes with the amount of power it's got. If we remember back to the Audi that we took round in the first episode, that was the second most powerful car we've had. And that had 775 horsepower-ish, I think. It's about 50 horsepower down on this. And that was sideways everywhere. And just like this car, it had the full aero, it had the race tyres, full widths, but it was just difficult to control. And this car was just remarkably easy to drive, apart from me missing my braking point slightly there, ignore that. But it just coped with the power so well. I mean, the rear tyres were so wide on this car. That's probably a large part of it, and the roll cage we put in really improved the chassis. So I guess that's probably a big part of it. But, I mean, massive kudos to this Charger, because it was so fun to drive and it handled its power so well, and I'm really repeating myself, but I'm just in awe of this car at the moment. It was so brilliant. I love it. I'm genuinely going to be using this in online lobbies in the future. And or in any random A-class cars. I sent a cone going into orbit. There he goes, just about landing in the back of shot. Yeah, I will try and contain my excitement now and to sort of talk about how this car actually performed and how it drove. It was surprisingly stable. If anything, it actually understeered a bit through the corners. As per usual, I'm likely to be a bit lead-footed and stick my foot down a bit too hard out of the corners and kick up a bit of tyre smoke, create a bit of wheel spin. But even that was minimal in this car. You can probably see coming around the corners. There's not a lot of places where I kick up a huge amount of tyre smoke, and yet there are a few places where I tend to almost run wide. And so to say this car was a little bit understeery is correct, but surprising, very surprising at the same time. But it was like I say, it was a very nice car to drive, and I've got to stop saying that. This last corner was especially hard to get right. I guess attributed to a bit of understeer. Don't really want. There's not a lot of room for error. You don't want to run off, and because you're just going to hit the wall otherwise. But apart from that, this car was. It was just. I'm going to stop saying it. It was just nice to drive. I need to stop saying that. Other parts of this track that are good to talk about. The undulations. We're going on a downhill now. There's little uphills and that. Barely noticed them. As we go onto the straight, you can feel the back end go a little bit light, but it's minimal. It was nowhere near as bad as a lot of other cars. So that's that pretty much covered. And I'm just sort of waiting for the car to get back round onto the straight now, so we can sort of talk about the straight line speed of this car. Because that is really where this car picked up most of its time, is through its straight line speed. A little bit sideways onto the straight this lap, so it's not going to be the best of runs. And this is the little kink, or the crest that I was talking about earlier. It goes a little bit looser in there. Most cars are in the region of 175 to 170 to 180 mile an hour. The Audi was like close to 180, but the BMW and the Lexus, which are the two at the top of our table, both hit 170 just over. This car was well into the 170s. It was doing sort of 175, 176 consistently into the braking zone, which is quite considerably faster, especially down a straight that isn't straight. And I'm still going to talk about the straight. I'll just let it play in the background. As I've talked about before, it's not a straight. It's a straight that isn't straight. And as you go round into the braking zone, it goes round to the right and then drops downhill. And I say that it's a good parameter to measure the downforce of the car. If I can stay over to the right as I go over the crest and to the right down into the braking zone, if I can stay over to the right hand side of the track, then it's got really good downforce. This car was struggling a little bit on the downforce front. It had a lot of raw grip but that's obviously due to the size of the tyres. But the downforce was lacking slightly, and that's probably one of very few criticisms of the car that I would have at all. There's like barely any at all. This car was just fantastic. Stop saying that. I'm sorry. I'm struggling. I'm struggling to contain my excitement, and I'm struggling to remember what else I was going to talk about. The brakes on this car seemed pretty damn good. You saw me outbrake myself going into the chicane at one point. Well, that is typically a very tricky braking zone to get right because it's downhill and round the crest to the right hand side as it kinks right. That sounded terrible, but I hope you know what I mean, and I hope it made sense. And yeah, this is just me drifting because I've finished all my laps now, so we can now get to talk about the really exciting bit at times and just ignore the fact that I was terrible at drifting and start reversing up the hill. That's just, yeah, let's gloss over that. This car did a lap time, and I'm just going to get it straight out with this time because I've got more to talk about. Did a lap time of 1 minute 26.93, putting it top of the table. And not by a huge amount, it must be said. It's just under a tenth faster than the BMW M6 from last time, which is fantastic. It's top of the table, brilliant. But that's not the most interesting thing that I really want to talk about with the times. You can see the scores or the times on the screen now. You can read those and interpret them how you wish. But because I love this car so much, I decided that I would go and tune it to make it better, so I could use it in more analysis. I mean, I'm not going to use the times or whatever that it's set with tuned in this series. This is a completely untuned series. This is just building the cars. But just to show you the amount of improvement that these cars could get, it's making me want to revisit the likes of the M6 and the Lexus. Because this car, after being tuned, did a best lap of 1 minute 24.6. 2.5 seconds nearly, or 2.3 seconds faster. That's quite a considerable margin. So if I can take 2.5 seconds off the M6 and the Lexus, they could be seriously good A-class cars, regardless of the fact that they're supposed to be unlikely. If don't forget, this is a very old muscle car. It was built to go relatively quickly in a straight line for a quarter of a mile, and it doesn't even know what a corner is. It's American. But anyway, I really, really like the car, and that's where I'm going to end this episode. So thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you're new, like, comment, all that stuff. So until the next one, Hastings out. Goodbye.